Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to our self-care discussion and webinar. Today we're going to talk about a couple of different aspects about what is self-care. It's a word we hear a lot. It's kind of almost been like a buzzword sometimes when it comes to how we rest, how we take care of ourselves, but it's actually a really important thing. And a lot of trainers that I've learned from have called it like a non-negotiable. And so we're going to kind of talk about why it's so important to practice self-care, and even outside of the times we're in right now, why it's always been so important. So I've got a couple of different things that I'll give you some tips on how to practice self-care. It's a topic that we at the team of GW have talked about, amongst our other instructors and fellow trainers and all of that. So it's a discussions that we've been having to have how we practice self-care and how we can share some great tips for you. And so this webinar is being recorded, so that way if you want to go back and reference it or weren't able to make today's session, you have the replay available to you. So we'll talk about the importance of self-care, signs of overtraining, which you can experience whether you're, been a seasoned, athlete, you might become more familiar with these things, or if you're newer to working out, these are some signs to look out for so that you don't overdo it as part of your fitness regimen. And we'll talk about kind of what's well balanced for your training, what types of activity you want to make sure you include in your training program, as well as stuff that is fun for you too. Give you some tips about injury prevention, and then, like I said, some recommendations that we, as the instructor team and trainer team here at Learner, have been thinking about and recommending to you guys and to our clients as part of self-care. So some of the reasons that self-care is so important, and like I said, it's kind of been deemed as kind of like a non-negotiable, taking care of yourself, making sure you're feeling balanced, you're feeling energized, and giving your body that time to rest and recover, giving your mind that time to rest. And particularly now where we're dealing with lots of different, stressors or things that are going on in our lives, it's really important to take that time, take a little time to reset, pause, reflect, recover. And that's what self-care is really all about. It's keeping you safe, it's keeping you healthy. When it comes to training, it's helping reduce your risk of injury. And it also keeps you balanced, like I said. In our discussion yesterday, one of the webinars, I talk about this, and I talk about it with my own personal training clients too. I like to call it a wellness wheel. And the reason why is because there are 5 key aspects. Some people say 4. I kind of break out 2 of them to make it 5. Firstly, you've got nutrition, hydration, sleep management, stress management, and fitness. So they're all kind of part of this wheel together, and they all work together too. So if one is a little out of sync, that can affect all the others. So that's why I call it a wheel. And there's 5 parts that are all working together. And so self-care is making sure that each of those parts are in balance to give you energy, keep you feeling healthy, and keeping you injury-free when you're doing your physical activities. So when it comes to those signs of overtraining, sometimes we can get into a groove and we're like really pumped and we want to keep going and going in our routines. But there's periods of time where you want to cycle in intentional rest, and that can be on a weekly basis. If you're a more seasoned athlete, you know about kind of like periodization and how you go through different cycles of training. Like when you're in the off season, things like that. That all plays a role into how well you are performing your exercise or your activity. Some signs of overtraining that you might experience are, you might feel that constant fatigue and low energy, and getting through a session can feel really tough. You kind of just try and get through it. You won't feel as strong in your performance. And you might not be that excited for your training session too. Sometimes that can be a factor that you're doing it to kind of cross it off your list for the day of things to do. Sometimes you'll feel your immune system is down a little bit. You might have like that cold that isn't just going away. Like I said, you'll feel that constant fatigue, or you might have kind of that lingering DOMS or lingering injury that might not be going away because the body's trying to recover in the midst of that training cycle. And you can also experience, like I said, that constant soreness. And you'll feel physiologically, your heart rate will be higher. You'll have a higher elevated, or you'll have, a more elevated resting heart rate. And some ways that you can check this out are you can check your own pulse manually. So you can check just above the neck here, you can check on the wrists and monitor how your resting heart rate is. You can kind of check it, you know, in the morning is best, right when you wake up, while you're lying down. That'll be the best indicator for how you measure your resting heart rate. If you wear any fit tech, so I'm wearing one right now, things like your Apple Watch or Fitbit. The brand that I happen to be wearing is Polar, but there are great tools out there that you can track it over the, it's best to track it over a series of days to take a look at what your resting heart rate looks like. And that can be an indicator that you might need some more rest if it's more elevated than what it usually is. And then also if you're feeling more stressed, you feel a little bit, there's a stress hormone that you have in your body called cortisol. And when that's elevated more, that can kind of spur those effects of the signs of overtraining. And you might feel an increased appetite, craving things, often sugary things. That can sometimes be a craving for people when they have a little bit more elevated of a cortisol level in their body. And so overtraining is one of those things you always want to kind of keep in tune. So when your instructors and trainers are telling you to listen to your body, that's what we're kind of really hinting at is what's the right option that you need to take in your workout today. Maybe it is that full rest day. Maybe it's taking that yoga class or, you know, something in a mind and body aspect, or maybe it's a leisurely walk. Leisurely walks have been shown to be just as effective at times for a training session. You know, when you're not feeling that great and you want to go do some sort of light activity to stay moving, but your body's saying a full-on gym session isn't the right thing for today. And actually, daily walks are recommended, even just 30 minutes. That can give you that energy boost. I love taking a walk. And we've even got our GW run walk challenge. So that's what I do. I do the walk part of it. And it's a great way to keep me kind of in that accountability of like, I'm getting my daily walk in. So I really enjoyed doing that. And in this time, making sure that it's a socially distant walk. So you got your face covering outside and staying, that 6 to 10 feet apart from people. And so that's something you can take a part in if you're looking to try and get your steps in. And, even doing just that little bit of activity can be just as effective some days as a more intense gym session. And so when it comes to, just got my notes over here next to me. So when it comes to thinking about, injury prevention, really listening to your body, taking the right variation in a class. So maybe it's, using less weight if you're in a strength training class to make sure you are executing the movements correctly, engaging the right muscles. Could be fewer reps, and more breaks during the course of a class. It could be, if it's a cardio class, maybe a lesser intense option, scaling back the resistance on a bike if you are cycling or in a spin class. If you're in a yoga class even, there's options. Taking a child's pose, maybe coming into an all fours position on quadruped, maybe flowing through a little bit of cat and cow, that can help you as well. It's just a way to pause, or even a nice down dog can be very refreshing. And like I said, that leisurely walk, if you wanted to swap out a gym session for being outside, that's a great thing you can do too. Another way to prevent injury is to make sure that your training sessions are balanced. So over the course of the week, really getting variety in. So even within, how we were talking about the wellness wheel earlier, within that, there's kind of you take the fitness piece out of the wheel. Within fitness, there's its own sub wheel. That's what I'm going to call it, a sub wheel. And within it is strength, cardio, core, flexibility / mobility, or you can call it mind and body as well, and making sure that is well-rounded. For me, I really enjoy strength training. That's one thing that I love to do and is often my primary way to train for me. But I'll integrate some cardio in, whether it's a short metabolic conditioning set or whether it's, doing a little bit of HIIT training. It could be, doing a body combat class. It could be doing some work on a stationary bike or that leisurely walk. That all counts. But the other key part is core training. Core training will impact all those other parts of the wheel because core training is functional. So is strength training, and so is cardio and all of that, and so is mind and body. But core training at its essence is functional. It helps us athletically, absolutely, but its key aspect of why it's so beneficial is it's functional. We're using the basic patterns of human movement, how humans are meant to move, and we're training those core muscles, those stabilizing muscles. So when you think about your core, it's everything except your arms and legs, front and back. And what the core does is it helps you stand tall. It's key for posture. The muscles that surround the core are helping to support the spine. Keep it nice and tall, lifted chest, shoulders back. That's all of your core working. Your core is working all day long. Even when you're sitting in a chair, standing, if you're going to the grocery store and carrying your groceries, picking something up off the floor, that is all from your core. So it's working for you all day long. It's your endurance muscles. And so the reason it's so important to strengthen them is to make sure that we are feeling good all the time, that we can do those functional movements, those basic patterns of everyday human movement. We call them the activities of daily life, ADL, in the fitness world. And so core is the foundation, core is the hub. And it's such an important thing to integrate into your sessions, or even like a 20 to 30 minute core session on its own, spread out over the course of the week. So even checking out like this summer, there's core with myself Tuesdays at 7:30 here virtually. And then Mallory also teaches core and glutes on Thursday afternoons. So a couple of chances that you can take some core training with us this summer and get a taste of what it's like. Core training is also really versatile, not just crunches and not just planks. There's a lot we do. You can train your core in standing, lying down, and on all fours, or even on your stomach in what's called prone. And so there's so many versatile and innovative ways to train the core. It's vital. It's going to support, like I said, everything else that you do. It's going to help with your mobility, which is your body's ability to move within a set range of motion really efficiently. Flexibility, a little bit different, but still important to practice. And that's where a mind and body component is also very important. Yoga, Pilates, two great activities to integrate and make your training balanced. I did say earlier that you also want to do things that are fun for you. So if your cardio is a dance fitness workout, rock on. Definitely keep doing that. Doing those things that you love is going to make, a well-balanced fitness regimen, all the more sustainable and successful for you because it is fun. But making sure that you have that variety. Spread those different types of sessions out over the course of the week. And that's something I do for myself that I found. I'll sit down on a Sunday and I actually have like a whiteboard that I write out all of my different sessions that I'm going to do over the course of the week. And I make sure they vary. So I'm not doing the same thing in consecutive days. So for example, today I did a strength session, and it was based more for the legs and power movements. That's what I was working on today. Next day, tomorrow, I'm gonna integrate more pull exercises, so things like rows, still continuing with strength, but different focus. And then I'll also do some yoga. And then the day after, I have core training. I had to remember what it was on my list. So yeah, so that's what I'll do, is I'll vary it throughout the week, and then making sure I give myself a rest day. That's so important. Sometimes you might even need 2 or 3. It's really depending on how your body feels, and also what are those other factors of your wellness wheel doing. How's nutrition? How's your hydration? Especially now that it's summertime, and because we are wearing face coverings outside, really monitoring how you feel in terms of your hydration is so important. Sleep and stress management. A not so great night's sleep will impact how you feel when it comes to your nutrition, what your body needs or starts to crave. That can be affected by your sleeping habits. It'll affect how well you do in your training session that you're doing. And so it's really, really important to make sure all of those things are in balance before you think about, what's my workout today? Take that time to assess. Take that time to reflect and think, becoming mindful and aware of what's happening with your body. One of the tools that I really like to use, and I'm not saying you have to go and get the tool or anything, but I really use like a lot of the data from my Polar watch. If you wear an Apple Watch or even Fitbit, they all have different apps with a ton of data that you can take a look at, and it helps kind of see how your body feels. But if you wear it overnight, you can kind of see how your sleep habits are. How much of different types of sleep are you getting over the course of the night's sleep? On average, we aim between 4 to 6 sleep cycles, which includes light sleep, deep sleep, and REM. And so making sure that you get all of those in a really balanced way overnight, that'll impact what your body needs in terms of movement for the next day. And so Polar, I know that's something that I take a look at, and it gives me some advice. So today it was like, go for it when it comes to training. So it'll give me a little bit of advice on kind of, oh, maybe today's a rest day based on how I slept the night before, based on how I recovered from the workout I did the day before. So really helpful tool. Apple, you can track your sleep as well. So there's different, devices and tech out there. So it can be a good partner, but most importantly, really be reflective, even if you don't have the tech or anything. Really listen. How'd the session feel? How are all those other aspects of your wellness wheel? Food, water, sleep, stress management. And so some recommendations and tips that we as the instructor team have thought about over the course of our discussions as a team and things like that. When it comes to self-care, and also when it comes to stress management, include, like I said, good hydration, nutrition. Especially during this time, I've really been prioritizing making sure my nutrition, this is what has been working for me, is making sure I prioritize protein and fruits and vegetables at every meal, because they contain really, particularly fruits and vegetables, they contain really important micronutrients for the body. And with protein, it keeps the body fuller, energized, and a great way to refuel after a session. And so some things you can check out include MyPlate from the USDA. They give you some tips and guidance on nutrition. And then if you have further questions about nutrition and want more specific meal plan guidance, I recommend contacting a registered dietitian. They'll be able to give you some more specific guidance on meal plans if you're looking for that. But great place to start. is USDA MyPlate. Highly recommend it. Like I said, getting that good night's sleep, making sure you kind of almost, you know, there's kind of almost like a, not a ritual, I want to say, for sleep. But we are having a webinar in a few weeks' time where we talk about sleep and sleep hygiene. So making sure we kind of take a break from technology before we go to bed, making sure to avoid caffeine, you know, kind of stop drinking your coffee or your caffeinated tea, things like that, before a set time during the day, because that'll affect your sleep later in the day. Kind of seeing, you know, when you eat, you know, kind of spacing out that before bedtime, that's important. And then making sure that your room is, you know, kind of set for sleep. You know, it's cool, blinds are down or curtains are closed, really just being able to kind of get the body prepared for sleep. Sometimes during a period of meditation or reflection, some people have done that as a way to kind of wind down at the end of the day, or reading a book. That is another great way to kind of help wind down the body before you go to sleep. And making mobility a part of your routine. So making sure to include, we had a webinar recently, and you can check it out on the YouTube channel that we've got, dynamic warm-ups. Those are so important. Another reason mobility is so important, and you can practice this in our yoga series. So Meredith is one of our teachers of a practice called Lit Yoga, and I'm doing my teacher training for it now. It's a really functional way to do yoga, and also it looks at really enhancing our mobility, really working on our posture, and so that's a great great practice to get into and to build strength and really integrate the core. Carolyn, also another great yoga instructor that we've got, who teaches on Tuesdays. Yes, I think I have almost the whole schedule in my head, but yeah. So definitely check out our schedule, get some insight into the different styles of yoga that we've got on the schedule this summer. And getting that mobility in, it's super important, particularly because being at home more and the way we're connecting with people is, you know, like we are now on Zoom, on a laptop, or on a device. So you're more likely to feel more hunched over, and you want to awaken the thoracic spine, and that's right here in the mid back. And so that's something we want to really focus on. And you'll definitely get that in those practices of yoga that I mentioned, and definitely checking out the replay of our mobility and dynamic warm-up with one of our trainers. So that's really important. Another one is hip mobility. Because we are sitting down generally more during this time, we want to make sure that the hips feel good. Because if the hips are tight, that can impact if you experience any lower back pain, you know, any knee pain. Sometimes that can be attributed from tightness in the hips. So really waking up the hips, making them mobile, it's going to make you feel good every day. And it's going to make your movements that you're doing, like squats, lunges, all feel a lot better. You'll be able to attain that range of motion a lot more efficiently. And then, like I mentioned before, you'll want to have that balance in your training. Super important, like we were talking about. Kind of thinking of fitness as that part of the wheel, and then the sub-wheel within it, with strength, with core, flexibility, cardio, all of those 4 parts, they matter a lot. And really just kind of monitoring if there's times where, you know, if you're in that productive state of training, or if you are in a kind of a maintenance mode, or maybe you're in a cycle of maybe detraining, and that's okay. But taking those rest days and making sure that it's balanced. And so that, like, whiteboard example that I gave of how I kind of think about my training for the week, that's something that I think about. And even though I kind of try and plan it out on Sunday, if my body says I need a rest day in the middle of the week and I have written on my whiteboard that I'm going to do, you know, X, workout, then I'm going to rest and I'm going to listen. Just because I know that it's going to be more beneficial than trying to push through that workout. My body's, going to say, hey, rest day is good because it'll be better for the next session. And then if you're looking to kind of get that guidance on thinking about what's the most effective way to kind of plan out those schedules, we've got a few webinars that we've done with some of the trainers already, but we also have personal training at the university. So if you have more questions, definitely reach out to us and we can set up some of those conversations with our personal training team to kind of help you think about programming your own regimen over the course of the week. And like I said, those leisurely walks, making sure now especially they are socially distant, but those 30 minutes of that activity really make all the difference. Getting that fresh air is, really important. It's a good energizer. That's what I like to think of it when I go for a walk. Other things to do for stress management, and we kind of haven't really talked about that yet, but it is an important thing. I find yoga to be a very good activity for that. My walks are, that I like to go on are also a very good stress management activity. Practicing mindfulness meditation, however you like to define it. There's a lot of different tools out there, different apps and things like that that you can try if that's something that you'd like. One thing I found effective is if you try Les Mills On Demand. There's some mindfulness meditation that they give. And it's just kind of taking a moment, pausing, slowing down, and just kind of reflecting internally how your muscles feel, how your body feels, and just creating that sense of mindfulness. So those are some really helpful tools there. Other ways to practice stress management are like finding a hobby or something that you enjoy, outside of that, any of your fitness routine or anything like that. So it could be if you love to read, if you like to listen to a podcast, or if you like to cook or bake. One thing I like to do is before everything closed down, I love to go to museums. I love art and I love history. And so I kind of set a goal for myself. I had started this at like the end of last year. I wanted to go to one museum a month. And so that kind of got halted with everything closing, but you can do that virtually. So that's something that I like to do. I'll go and check out a gallery virtually at a museum. And it's really cool. Like, even though you aren't in the museum seeing the art or painting, the sculpture in person, you can still get that, it's a different activity. It's, it's stimulating for the mind. And so that's something that you can try as well. Some friends of mine have done like knitting or crocheting or sewing, kind of those hobbies and activities. So just discovering that activity that is fun for you to do. So having that hobby and, keeping in touch and staying connected with people. We talked about that in our webinar yesterday about community through fitness, but it still applies even outside of fitness. Community is so important. Humans were inherently social. So it's, keeping in touch with family and friends and just having, good connection and conversation. So there's a lot of different things that you can integrate, as part of self-care and stress management. But, you can make those little appointments for yourself and kind of take that time. So if you wanted to say, I'm going to do, a 30-minute of yoga or 30-minute walk, put it on your calendar. Make that appointment for yourself. You're taking care of you so you can be your best self in all aspects, whether you're at work, whether you're in school, taking, your classes, it all helps. So I hope you enjoyed today's discussion. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us, GW Campus Rec. We're happy to talk about those things a little bit more detail with you. If you want to inquire about personal training, reach out to us as well. And so we'd be happy to, discuss how to do programming with you as well. If it comes to nutrition and you need more specific meal plan guidance, definitely reaching out to a registered dietitian. We are connected with one through the Department of Athletics, so we can kind of help foster that connection. But a good place to get some general recommendations, like I said, is USDA My Plate. And yeah, if you have any questions, let us know. And thank you so much. And take care, everybody. Have a good one.